What's up guys, it's Clump, and in today's video I'm going to be going over your HUD, which is the most important part of what makes a good player good and a bad player bad. I'm going to be telling you how to optimize your HUD, showing you two different HUDs that I would recommend, one being the most optimal I think in the game currently, and one being my current HUD. I'm also going to be giving you ways that you can improve your current HUD if you don't feel like completely switching. So no matter how skilled you are or how comfortable with your HUD you are, you should watch this video. Remember that every like matters, so please drop a like if you enjoy the video, and let's get right into it.
Left the tongue stain, let my what hang, falling short breath, thought my lungs cave, I'm a nuisance.
Now while a lot of people say HUDs are all personal preference, and I can agree with this in terms of button size and spacing, there is a statistical best way to control the game. Now a lot of what I'm basing optimization on is off the factor that I'm about to show you from one of Jarian's videos on the most optimal PC keybinds.
The best and most optimal keybinds is pretty simple. You want to try and have as many different building blinds as you can on different fingers.
Now trying to explain why this is important, and I'm also going to bring in the factor of editing, which I also believe is just as important in optimization, is that these two aspects of Fortnite are the things that you need to be most precise in. Jumping and crouching are just simply pressing a button, and as long as you can get your finger onto the button, it doesn't matter how quickly or precisely you do it. However, with building and editing, every move you make and every button you press has to be precise to the 10th of a second, and even less than that, if you want to be the most optimal player possible. That said, these are also the most important controls in Fortnite, as they make you the most mechanically skilled player possible, so this is what I mainly take into factor in making an optimal HUD, which I'm going to show you now. So before anyone just goes and copies this HUD, I'm going to tell you it's very unconventional, and that this is also an 8-finger claw, which most people are not used to. No matter what claw I'm going to show you in this video, it is 6 fingers plus, and that's because I highly recommend switching to 6 finger at this point in Fortnite if you're trying to become an optimal player. Now some people do find it uncomfortable to play 6 finger, and that's most likely because of the way that you're positioned while playing Fortnite. 6 finger is very difficult to play at a desk unless you have somewhat like a standing case. So what I do, or what I would recommend, is sitting either on a bed or leaning back in your chair at a desk and just playing with your iPad on your lap instead of having to hold it in the air or press your hands against a table. Now finally explaining the HUD, I'm going to start with the pointer fingers as they're probably the most important. So on each pointer finger I divided up the build select buttons and the weapon select buttons instead of using the quick bar and the build button. And that's just because, like I said, you can divide up the build buttons between different fingers, and there's going to be less input delay than having to use the build button to switch in between weapons and building mode. Also with your pointer fingers I have the target select thing, where you can basically mark something on the map without having to go into the map, and then also the use feature, which if people haven't switched to this by now, you should be using this instead of actually tapping a chest or an item. Now with the right and left middle fingers, you can have various different buttons here, but I just have these ones, and I'm going to explain in a second. The only ones that I feel like explaining are the editing, because that's what I also include in my definition of optimization. So right here on the right middle finger I have the select and reset button, which I use as my only edit select button, and that's because that's pretty much all you need, as it already selects and resets something for you to start, so you don't need the actual edit select button like you did originally before the update. And kind of pairing this with the left index finger, I have the select edit on the right side and the crosshair edit on the left side, just because you have to actually move your screen even if you crosshair edit just to select the tiles. So you always want to have your crosshair edit on the left side, and then you want to have a different side for your select edit button, as it just makes it quicker. Then with the right index finger I just have the jump button and the inventory, because those are just like stationary things. You use the jump button constantly, so you're just going to constantly be having your right index tapping, so you don't want to tire it out and put any other buttons on it. And then lastly, your thumbs, you should only be using it to look around and to actually move around. And then also I have the change material, but that's the most rarely used, so that's just why I have it down there for your right thumb to use. But basically this HUD will allow you to do all primary movements and actions, and if you're willing to sacrifice a couple weeks to making yourself a better player and not caring that you're going to be very bad for a few weeks, because I don't think anyone ever actually uses this method of splitting up your builds, so it's going to be a completely new muscle memory you have to get down. Eventually it'll pay off, as that's the most optimal HUD you can have. Now I'm just going to go over a more conventional 6-finger HUD, and this is actually my personal HUD, and with being my personal HUD it will have a bit of bias, but I still believe it's quite optimal, and I'll explain why. And I've actually made some modifications so it's not perfectly my HUD, because my HUD isn't perfect. So this HUD does again use the quick bar and the build button instead of the separate edit and combat buttons. And also, I'm not going to have the individual text for what finger is going to do what. I'm just going to explain it. So the thumbs are pretty much identical to the 8-finger HUD. You just use it to look around and to move around, because you want those actions always just by themselves without anything interfering with it. Then my left and right index fingers are doing a bit of work, but it's pretty simple once you get used to it. So the right index finger is using the target, select, reset, all of that, and then the build button, the crouch button, and the ADS. And then my right middle finger is just jumping, and that's pretty much it. But also when I have my brute buttons, if I ever use a brute, those are also by my right middle finger. And then my left index finger I'm just using to select builds and select guns. The use feature, the mark feature, inventory, and the secondary feature. And then my right index finger I just use to shoot and to crosshair edit. And this is a pretty optimal HUD as is. I don't think I'd really change anything. In my normal HUD I have my 2 edits on the same side just because I'm used to that. So it is slightly less optimal, but I'm fine with that. But if you're looking for a really solid 6-finger HUD, I would recommend using this one if you're not willing to switch to the 8-finger one. That's pretty much all the tutorial I have to give. My next video is probably going to be either on FPS or aim. You guys can always leave me suggestions for what videos you want in the comments, and just from the knowledge I have from being a pro in the community, I'll just try to explain everything as best I can to make you all better players. And if you guys haven't already, drop a like on the video. If you want to, you can use creator code CLUMPYT in the item shop. And now I'm just going to have some gameplay going on since I don't really do gameplay videos anymore. So if you still want to see some highlights from me or just overall gameplay, I'm just going to have it on in the background right now. Partly because I want a 10-minute video, but still providing content. So, see you guys in the next one.
From my game, I'm trying to play around with those notifications. Can be the most fun part. You have exploding arrows. They're actually kind of fun. Let's give it a bigger explosion.
I'm in time before and he gets absolutely laser from up top. Celeste and Clump. Oh, they're definitely winning this. They're winning this 125%. They won the whole tournament. They're nasty.
18 days until she posts out. I see the AC gray riding the road in the car. lifestyle, changing lanes, feel